But how did that work for you? Did you get inspired there? Were you more disciplined? Did you rebel? What did
I smoked a lot of hash.
Did that mellow you out?
I was always looking for something. You know, I always thought wherever I was, it was all happening someplace else, you know? And that's a feeling that I didn't get over until relatively late in life. So, you know, after some months in Israel, then I wanted to go to Europe because I thought it was all happening in Amsterdam, you know, so I went to Amsterdam and hung out there for a little while and with some house crackers, you know, or people who squat in condemned buildings, you know, and smoked dope there. And then we went to Copenhagen and smoked dope there and went to, took a tour of the Carlsberg beer brewery and the Tuborg beer brewery. And I don't drink beer, but they were giving out free beer, so I drank and, you know, and smoked. And at the end of one of these tours, somebody said, let's go to a tattoo parlor. And that seemed like a really good idea, so.
Of course it did.
Well, here's the thing, you see. So I'm like 18 at the time, yes. And the Vietnam War is going on, and I don't want to get, you know, I don't want to go to Vietnam. I'm going to last about 30 seconds in the Army with my attitude. And so I did my due diligence and I read all the draft regulations, you know, and what could disqualify you. And I found out this really interesting little sub-rule, which was the Army would not take you if you had a, quote, obscene tattoo, okay? So here's my brilliant plan. I'm going to get "fuck the Army" tattooed on my saluting hand, you know? That's
okay.
Brilliant. So we're in Copenhagen. We go down to the waterfront where all the tattoo parlors are, and you know, I tell them I want "fuck the Army" tattooed on my saluting hand. And apparently, the law in Denmark is you cannot be tattooed above the wrist bone. So I'm not going to walk out of there without a tattoo. So I got this, which is a peace sign, and it used to be my name over it, L-E-E.
Well, that's very different from your original idea.
Yeah.
For peace.
Well, it was still anti-war,
yeah.
You know, and this is the exact size of a Danish kroner coin, or was at the time. You know, he put it on my arm and he drew the outline, and you know, and then he did the rest freehand, which really freaked me out. You know, because when somebody is drawing on you indelibly forever, you kind of want them to have a guide, not just be winging it, but. So I've had that ever since, and from Copenhagen, went to Germany, and then I went home, and I had applied while I was in Israel to the University of Pittsburgh for a probationary acceptance. So I had to go to a little branch campus at the University of Pittsburgh in Titusville, Pennsylvania, a tiny little town in western Pennsylvania. I had a great summer, you know. I had to take 2 courses and I had to get B's or better, I think, to get full admittance to the University of Pittsburgh system. And, you know, partied every night, got high a lot. And in the middle of that summer, the draft lottery occurred. And I don't know, you may not know what the draft lottery was, but in those days, they would take birthdays, you know, every date, January 1st through December 31st, put it all in a bowl, and they'd pick dates in order, and the order that you were picked was the order that you got drafted. So if you were picked, you know, 250th, chances are you weren't going to get drafted. My number was 3.
Ah, of course it was.
Of course it was. So we're listening to this on the, you know, we're watching this on TV in the dorm, and, you know, my number comes up to 3. I'm not happy about this. And so somehow somebody got a big plastic American flag from someplace, and we poured lighter fluid on it, and we set it on fire out in front of the dorm. And then we hung the charred remains in front of the dormitory. Now you got to understand, this dorm building was just in the middle of this residential neighborhood in this tiny midwestern Pennsylvania town. And there's this charred American flag hanging up there. Okay, this was the biggest scandal that had hit Titusville, Pennsylvania in years. There was an investigation. There was, it was all very, 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 very dire. And the upshot of it was I was invited not to return to the University of Titusville, the University of Pittsburgh at Titusville. So I transferred in the fall, since my grades were good enough to matriculate. I went to another little branch campus in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, which was a slightly bigger town.
Why did you even want to go to college?
Fear. I grew up, my father was an attorney, upper middle class Jewish upbringing. Where I grew up, everybody went to college.
But where you grew up, everyone also probably did well in school, or at least tried to.
Well, there were some screw-ups like me, the kids I hung out with in high school. I hung out with a group of kids in high school. We called ourselves freaks. There were freaks and there were straights. And I thought all the freaks were as big screw-ups as I was, and it really wasn't true. Yeah, they were smoking dope, but they were also going home and doing their homework. So, yeah, the answer to the question, why did I want to go to college, was simply because that's what you did.
Okay.
I'd been...
That's what you saw your father do.
Well, that's my father instilled in me
Yes.
that if I didn't go to college, my life was going to be a horrific nightmare of, failure and deprivation. My father grew up during the Depression, and so he was very big on, do the work and, keep all your options open.
Yeah, even if you don't use it, it's good to have in your back pocket.
Right. So I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I certainly felt like I needed to get into college and, get a degree. And, I thought, hey, maybe I can go to law school or something. So in Johnstown was this little campus up in the mountains in the Alleghenies. It's like kind of really isolated, and it was just like 600 students or something, bunch of dorms, and beautiful, but really isolated to the extent that on weekends, everybody on campus was on the same drug. It's just like it was acid weekend, it was mescaline weekend, it was so there was a lot of that, and I got into a fair amount of trouble for various things. I put on a play there that ended up wrecking the space that it was in, and I don't know. It was a weird year. And I guess I must have done all right academically because I applied to transfer to the University of Colorado from there. And the University of Colorado I applied to because I read the underground guide to the college of your choice. And what it said was the University of Colorado was the party capital of the West. So I thought,
they beat
hey,
San Diego out?
That's for me.
Okay.
Maybe it was Midwest.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
No, but it was highly rated for sex and drugs. And so I thought, okay, that's for me. And
There you have it.
there I have it. I ended up at the University of Colorado. I majored in political science.
I want to backtrack a little, then we could continue on.
All right. Yeah, I've been talking a long time with no interruption.
Yeah, because you have good stories, though. Otherwise, I would have interrupted you.
You can edit,